پرۆفیسۆر سلااو لەبێت تۆم کاتت باش سوپاس کە لەگەڵمی شانەزیێکی گەورەیە کە گفتوگۆ لەگەڵ بەڕێزت دەکەم. سەرەتا دەمەوێت لە پرسی کوردەوە دەست پێ بکەین تا ڕادەیەک بەڕێزت داگەداری پرسی کوردی. چۆن کوردت ناسی؟
It's not only because I was invited from time to time to give a statement. Once I even gave a talk for the university in Rojava. I think it's much more the situation of Kurds for me is maybe the best embodiment of the deadlock in which we all are. Because Kurds are, because of colonial politics, but also the play of all nations, games, intrigues of all nation states around Kurdish territory, they again embody what is wrong in our world. Because, you know, sorry, just to explain, the first thing one should note is this incredible prejudice in the West based on some old adventure novels, that popular adventure novels, that Kurdistan is a wild territory. Maybe honest, heroic, but savage people, and so on and so on. And what attracted my attention is precisely the incredible intellectual debates and enlightened mind of Kurdish people. For example, you also have, how are they called, Peshmergas, the women fighters and so on. And so it's so sad how because of this colonial mixture, you are divided between what? At least 4 nations, you know, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. How nobody wants to give you actual full autonomy, which I think you deserve. And I am so badly surprised that the big powers, world powers, should be much more on your side. I think that some unification of all Kurds, maybe not a full sovereign state, but nonetheless, de facto, a full autonomous territory will bring much more stability in that region. It would allow, it would serve as a protecting barrier between the different states. So I think that the sad element here is that great powers, that you have also to count on great powers to put pressure on local powers where you are. For example, although Noam Chomsky is very much against me, at one point I agreed with him. He said that in general he is against American interventions. But you remember a couple of years ago when Trump as president ordered a withdrawal of American forces, I think from northern Syria, that this was a catastrophic decision. Precisely where United States should remain, they withdrew their forces. So the conclusion I draw from this is that nobody has the right to make you feel guilty, like, I don't know, if you rely on United States help, that you are serving American imperialism or whatever.
Basha,
you
Professor.
should not sacrifice yourself for anybody.
Basha. پێم خۆشە بپرسم، ینی لەگەڵ ئەو دابەشبوونەی کورد بەسەر ناوچەکە و جیهاندا فاکتەرەکانی مانەوەی کورد چین، کورد چی بکە بۆ ئەوی بکە وەکو میلەتێکی زیندوو بمێنێتەوە؟
But the sad thing, the very sad thing is that there simply is no guarantee, I think. I think that we live in a world, today's global world, which is clearly not guided by any higher destiny or even in Marxist sense, general laws of progress. Things can go definitely wrong. You are condemned to your freedom. You cannot rely on any higher force to protect you, which is why, again, I think you have all the right to reject this suspicious geopolitical games of telling you, but you serve American imperialism, but you serve Russian interests or Islamist interests or whoever. No, you have the full right to do whatever it will be necessary to guarantee your survival. You don't owe anything to anybody, but there is no guarantee. That's the sad message.
باشە پرۆفیسۆر دەمێ بپرسم هۆکاری ئەوەی کە کورد تا ئێستا نەبووتە دەوڵەت هۆکارەکەی چه هۆکارەکە کورد خۆیەتی یا پەیوەندی بە جیۆسیاسی ناوچەکە هەیە و خاکی کوردەوە؟
I think that in many cases where groups of people are in a situation like Kurds, you can also locate their own guilt of these people, but not in the case of Kurdistan. It's, you know what's your tragedy? Once I said, don't misunderstand me here, I'm not a madman, but once I gave a talk in Istanbul and I very conditionally praised the ancient Turkey till the end of 19th century with Sultan and so on and so on. And I said that that was almost better for your survival because, you know, the old Turkey, not old, till the end of 19th century, was much more multi-centric. It allowed relative autonomy to different regions. While I think that the tragedy for you and for other different ethnic components of the Turkish Empire, like the Armenians, that's the tragedy, began when, with so-called young Turks, when Turkey wanted to become a modern nation state. That was your tragedy. Simply, in this state, there was no place for you. I know that Atatürk tried to impose a suspicious solution, which was to proclaim you Kurds simply Kurdish Turks. It didn't work, obviously. So again, you see, the tragedy is not that Turkey, especially Turkey or Iraq or Syria, that they are primitive states. No, they are also that. But nonetheless, the tragedy for you began when these states want to become modern, homogeneous nation states.
باشە باسی وڵاتە کۆلۆنیاڵەکانت کرد دەمەوێ لە کوردەوە بپەڕێنەوە بە وڵاتێکی دیکە و پرسێکی دیکەی ئەمڕۆی جیهان کە شەڕی رووسیا و ئۆکراینایە دەمەوێت بە جەنابەت بپرسم ئایا وڵاتانی کۆلۆنیاڵن کە ئۆکراینا بەکاردەهێنن ئەوەی کە ئێستا ڕوو ئەدا لە نێوان رووسیا و ئۆکراینا خوێندنەوەی چێ بووی؟
Please, I didn't hear.
باشە دەمێ بپرسم ئەو دۆخەی ئێستا لە خوددا بڵین ئەو شەڕێکی لە نێوان رووسیا و ئۆکراینا هەیە پێت وایە ئەم شەڕە هۆکارەکەی وڵاتە کۆلۆنیاڵەکانن کە ئۆکراینا بەکاردێنن یعنی دەمەوێت بزانم خاکی ئۆکراینا بۆتە گۆڕەپانێک بۆ یەکلاکردنەوەی شەڕی نێوان زلهێزەکانی جیهان
I know this is a popular judgment, even in some leftist circles in the West, but I think this is a very cruel stance towards Ukrainians when they say they are just fighting a proxy war. No, sorry, it's not a proxy war. They're fighting literally for their survival as a nation. Their opponent, the aggressor, Russia, doesn't only want to submit them, to make them part of some kind of a new Soviet Union. No, they explicitly deny even their existence. They said Ukrainians don't exist. Putin said a couple of times that Ukraine is, it's interesting whom he criticized, it's Lenin's invention. So, of course, Ukrainians are looking for help whenever they can find it. But I think that instead of reducing them to a local proxy war among great powers, we should rather admire them. Ukrainians did something incredible. I remember when the war began, not only did all great powers, also Western powers, also all states in Western Europe, expect a quick defeat of Ukraine. I claim they secretly even desired that defeat. It's a survival war. Of course, other countries got involved and so on and so on. But isn't it clear? Putin is repeating this again and again, that what he aims at is a kind of a restoration. That's interesting. Not so much of Soviet Union as of the Tsarist Empire. And he makes it very clear, again and again, explicitly. One does not have to read between the lines, that what was in the Tsarist times, the Russian sphere of influence, Finland, Poland, and so on, this should again be totally neutralized under Russian influence.
باشە. پرۆفیسۆر لەم جەنگەی کێ سەڕ و دەدا درۆن بەکاردەهێنرێ. بە جەنگی درۆنەکان ناوی دەبن. لەمە بزانم تەکنەلۆژیا چه ڕۆڵێکی هەیە لەو جەنگە؟
It is true that this is another aspect, but it is true that war will become more and more impersonal. It will be less and less, although they still play a crucial role, soldiers on the ground. Wars are now more and more fought by people who sit in some command center, laboratories, sometimes even thousands of kilometers behind the front line and just observe the war on a screen, press buttons, and so on and so on. This is our future. And you know, we cannot escape it. My dream is only, this will be a joke, wouldn't it be nice then for the warring sides to make a deal to pick up some part of the world which is a total desert or not of any use without humans and say, let's define that as a terrain of our struggle and let's do a fight there, not hurting anybody and so on and so on. So on the one hand, wars are becoming more and more like drone wars, technological wars with lesser and lesser role of actual fighters. On the other hand, and that's the sad thing about the use of drones, the targets are more and more, not even so much soldiers as the civilian population behind the front lines. Like, look what Russia is doing now, systematically bombing the grain silos, the grain resources in the west of Ukraine, close to Romanian border, and so on and so on. This is, I think, a horrible predicament, especially if you allow me just to add something, especially in the situation with regard to the situation in Central Africa. We had there a couple of military coups, coup d'etat in the last month, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, which were done with Russian help, Wagner Group, and local Islamist soldiers. Now Russia interprets these uprisings as struggle against Western colonialism. There is an element of truth in it. French ex-colonies are still under French dominance, exploited by France and so on. But isn't this a very sad situation? The alternative, Islamist coup d'etat, this link between Islamist fundamentalists and Russian private armies, this is the worst nightmare. This is, for me, an extremely sad situation where the choice is between bad and worse, between Western colonialism and much more brutal local dictatorship.
باشە پرۆفیسۆر پێم خۆشە زیاتر لەسەر پێشکەوتنی تەکنەلۆژیا بۆستین من خۆم ئاگاداری بەشێ لە بۆچوونەکانتم بەرامبەر بە پێشکەوتنی تەکنەلۆژیا ئێستا تەکنەلۆژیا لە بەرەو پێشچوونە دەمەوێت پێمان بڵێ بۆچوونی تۆ تێڕوانینی تۆ بۆ بەرەو پێشچوونی تەکنەلۆژیا چیە ئایا مرۆڤایەتی بەرەو پێشەوە دەبا و داهاتووە بۆ مرۆڤایەتی یاخود وەک باسی لێ دەکرێت کاولکاریە و مرۆڤایەتی بەرەو دواوە دەبات
A double take. On the one hand, I don't believe that we are already at the level where artificial intelligence or systems regulated by mega computers make decisions. I think that it is clear that all this, the military and other violent means controlled by artificial intelligence still serve concrete political interests of ruling classes, of rich people in some countries, and so on and so on. On the other hand, what I fear, and I've written about this a lot, what I fear much more than these computers that will dominate us is something we are coming closer and closer. A direct contact between our brain processes and digital machines. Do you know that a tremendous progress is going on where computers can already, still in a very rough way, but nonetheless, read our thoughts, read our intentions. We are deprived of this most elementary freedom. Even if you are a slave, you can, at least in some sense, you are free in your inside. You can think what you want. What happens if this becomes accessible to a computer? We are, in some sense, no longer humans. This is what makes me really afraid.
باشە ینی پێ وایە بژیری دەستکردو ئەو بەرەو پێش چوونەی کە هەیە لە داهاتوودا ببێتە مەترسی زیاتر وەکو خۆ دەڵێی ئەمە مێشکی مرۆڤەکان ئەم تەکنەلۆژیای بەرەو پێشونە مێشکی مرۆڤ کۆنتڕۆڵ دەکات پێ وایە لە داهاتوودا مەترسەکەی زیاتر بێ خوێندنەوە چییە بۆ چەند ساڵی داهاتوو یا خود بەو شێوازە بڵێم بۆچی نەڵێن مرۆڤ تەکنەلۆژیا کۆنتڕۆڵ دەکات بۆچی ئەم ترسە هەیە کە تەکنەلۆژیا و ڕۆبۆتەکان مرۆڤایەتی کۆنتڕۆڵ بکەن
First, let me make a brief remark. What is so fascinating is that modern science from early 20th century onwards is no longer like the old natural science, which just wants to control and exploit nature more efficiently. Now, the big challenge is how to create machines which will have intelligence, which will be more bright, more intelligent in some sense than ourselves. This is not an unwelcome result. Our scientists are obsessed by this idea. Let's create intelligent machines. I don't think they will succeed. Machines will not be intelligent in a human way. But this doesn't matter. It is quite possible not only that they will control us,
لەم سەردەمی پێشکەوتنی تەکنەلۆژیایەکە بزانم ڕۆڵی ڕۆشنبیران یان با بڵێن فەیلسوفان لەم سەدەیە و لەم سەردەمی پێشکەوتنی تەکنەلۆژیا چییە و بەرەو کوێ دەچێت؟
You put it very well in your question. I think the role is not to offer solutions. We cannot do it. Don't ask me what to do with artificial intelligence. Don't ask me what to do, for example, with ecology. But we should at least learn people to ask the right questions, not to provide simple solutions, but to raise the right questions. Take ecology. You know, many people who are aware of ecological troubles offer simplistic solutions like trust technology, new inventions will make, or conservative solution. Let's return to more old-fashioned way of life. No, all this doesn't work.
باشە. پرۆفیسۆر دەمەوێت سینەما و تەکنۆلۆژیا بەیەکەوە ببەستینەوە. من دەزانم بەڕێزت خوێندنەوەیکی زۆر باش و ڕەخنەگرانەت هەیە بۆ سینەما. لەم سەردەمەی تەکنۆلۆژیایە ئێستا ئەوە دەیبینین ڕەنگە ئاگادار بی کە لەمەوەی ڕابردوودا بەشێک لە سینەماکاران و نووسەران و ئەکتەران ڕەخنەیان لە بەرەو پێشچوونی تەکنۆلۆژیا گەر بەوەی کە ڕۆڵی ئەوان کەم دەکاتەوە. خوێندنەوەی تۆ بۆ ئەمە چییە؟
My take on this is a pretty cynical one. As many intelligent critics noted, the problem is not the role of digital machines in writing scenarios and so on and so on. The problem is that all these blockbusters, so-called Marvel movies and so on, were already so repetitive, stupid, flat, that they were already structured as if they were written by an artificial, not even very creative intelligence. That's why, although I don't like them, I like these two, I admire these two last big hits, Barbie and Oppenheimer, because they don't fit this model.
باشە. پرۆفیسۆر دوا پرسیار مەگەر بە وردی وەڵام بە کورتی وەڵامم بدەیتەوە. یەکێ لە ئاواتەکانی بەڕێزەدەوە بوو کە کتێبێکی گەورەتری هەزار لاپەڕەیی وەکو کتێبی کەمتر لە هیچ less than nothing بنووسی. کە ئەم کتێبە دەنووسی؟ چاوەڕێ بین بۆ ئەم کتێبە؟
Less than nothing already appeared. I don't know how many years ago, but you know what happened to me? This was to be my life work. It's 1,000 pages. Then when I finished the book, in my dreams, I was haunted by ideas of what I failed to do in that book. And for the last 7-8 years, I am just trying to fill in what I failed to do in that book. But what may interest you more is that now I just finished a new book, two new books. One, which will appear next month, is on freedom. How contradictory the notion of freedom is. What does it mean today to be effectively free? It's a critique of neoliberal notion of freedom. The next book, the title says everything is Christian atheism. I am, sorry if I offend some of you, I am an atheist. But I think atheism also needs a certain, you can call it religious, theosophical experience, the experience of our fragility, of the abyss void in which we ultimately dwell, and that without this basic, however you call it, mystical, theosophical experience, we are not really humans. That's what I'm dealing with it now. It's a little bit the result of the fact that I'm getting old. And in my old age, you start to raise this fundamental question.
بەڕێز اسلاوی ژیژک فەیلسوفی سلۆڤینی خۆشحاڵ بووم کە گفتوگۆم لەگەڵ بەڕێزت کرد. سپاس بۆم دەرفەت.
One sentence. I have a couple of secret drinks. Already a couple of years ago, before COVID and before new violence there, they already made plans for me to visit in northern Syria, how do you pronounce it, Rojava, or what university. My secret dreams, I don't want to die, but when it will be not too... Yeah, Yes, I would love to visit some part of Kurdistan because, again, what fascinates me is you who are viewed by some Westerners still as some, there were books when I was young written in the wild mountains of Kurdistan and so on. Crazy people, primitive. No, you are the most progressive intellectually group in the entire Middle East area. You are a miracle, and you as such can be a model, not only to the countries around you, but to all the world, how a small, underprivileged group can explode intellectually. I hope a miracle will happen. Maybe one of the hopes, maybe I'm dreaming for Kurdistan. By Kurdistan, I mean all the fragments of other Kurds live, to develop, to become like what Bangalore is in India, the programming digital center and so on. That's the good thing about today's civilization. You can directly jump to computing and so on center without the classic industrialization. So again, one of my last wishes is to visit Kurdistan, whichever part. I just want to be there. And you've proven how well you can do. Okay, not in a very leftist, but in the north of Iraq, when there was chaos there, your Kurdish part was the only part which functioned normally in Iraq. In northern Syria, your part was the most enlightened part and so on. People should learn this. People should know this. You are not like
Professor سپاس دەکەم هیوادارین کە ڕۆژێک لە ڕۆژان بەڕێستان سەردانی کوردستان بکەن و لە نزیکەوە بتان بینین. سوپاس بۆ ئەم دەرفەتە زۆر خۆشحاڵ.